lent his support to Joe Biden. So that is with only 1% of the precincts reporting. You see the incredibly low number of votes here. So those are results, but obviously so very, very early. It's really hard to get any sort of a sense of how things are going to end up. We will, of course, have much, much higher numbers in the most populous state in the union. And, of course, on the Republican side, no contest really, token opposition from Republican Joe Walsh to the President Donald Trump. This is to be expected, of course.
Okay, well, let's talk to Dr. Ricks about these early returns that we're getting now here in California. Of course, it's still very early. And I should mention that the order of counting the ballots in Los Angeles County, first vote by mail is tallied, followed by early ballots that were dropped off in person, and then all the people who voted today at the polling places. Taking a look at the results in California, it's not what we're seeing for the other states that are participating in Super Tuesday events today.
I think California, we're going to have it's going to be a long night tonight. I'm not sure that we'll be able to give a tally until maybe sometime on Thursday.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a lot of votes that need to be counted. As you mentioned, the VBMs, the vote by mails, need to be counted first. And there are still lengthy lines this evening. As I was driving here to the studio, I saw lines. So there's at the voting centers. So it's going to take some time, and we're going to have to figure some things out. And we just have to keep our eyes on the prize.
All right. So we'll just stay here until there's a result. If it's Thursday, then we'll just keep hanging out. Glad you could join us.
We'll get the coffee going.
We'll have snacks. All right. We're going to check back in with you. Of course, you're with us all evening. Been a great night for Joe Biden so far. No question about that. He is nearly sweeping the South with a total of 7 wins.
And no surprise here, Bernie Sanders has won his home state of Vermont. Eyewitness News reporter Giovanna Lara is here to break down the rest of the Super Tuesday map. Giovanna?
Mark and Michelle, actually, Biden has won 8 states now. So far, we have 11 of 14 states reporting. Biden in the lead, as we mentioned, with 8 states. Bernie Sanders has taken 3 at this point. Now, starting in the East, we are still waiting on Maine, but we know moments ago that Biden took Massachusetts with 34% of the vote. We know that Bernie Sanders won Vermont. No surprise there. That is his home state. Biden claiming a big night for Biden, claiming we've got, if we can roll the prompter here for us, Biden claiming Virginia, North Carolina, a big win tonight, the 3rd biggest prize for him behind California and Texas. Biden also winning Minnesota, Tennessee, Alabama, Arkansas, Oklahoma. We know that Sanders won Utah and Colorado, and again, we're still waiting on California. We're still waiting on Maine and Texas, of course. California and Texas, 2 big wins to achieve tonight. But again, a very big night for Biden. No wins for Elizabeth Warren tonight. However, Mike Bloomberg has won American Samoa with 50% of the votes and its 6 delegates. And once again, waiting on 3 states, Maine, Texas, and California. The polls here in California likely to stay open late due to those long lines at several polling places. Back to you guys.
Right, Giovanna, thank you. And they may also stay open late due to an injunction that has been filed by the Bernie Sanders campaign. And we are now getting the response from Los Angeles County. At this time, I can confirm the Sanders campaign filed a petition to LA County to extend the hours of the vote centers, and at this time, it is under review with County Council. I believe that's from Dean Logan's office, LA County Registrar.
Yeah, and it's kind of troubling when they've got the new system in place. And I guess if more people had voted early, we wouldn't be having these problems today. So I think everybody's learning at this point. Voters are learning. I'm certainly not, when it comes time for the general election, I'm going to vote early. I'm not going to vote on election day. Bet a lot of people sitting in line right now are probably thinking the same thing. I mean, I think part of this was meant to kind of change voter behavior, wasn't it?
I think certainly the change was to influence voting behavior, to encourage participation. And one of the things that I find that is very, very interesting, a number of students told me that they registered to vote by mail because they were going to be working. And that was interesting. So the vote by mail programs that a lot of community-based organizations and others who advocate higher participation that have been supported have certainly done that, and certainly got people out early. But the challenge is for those who might not have the opportunity to vote early, to go stand in line and have to go stand in line and wait these long lines, and then this new system.
Right.
So it's been interesting.
And
as a matter of fact, some people even voted on Sunday. Some people went to the centers. Went to the centers. There were church buses that were taking people to centers on Sunday as part of a church outreach program. So that was a great idea.
Yeah.
Souls to the polls, they've called it in other jurisdictions. Right,
absolutely,
yes.
absolutely.
So, the problem, of course, with that, you vote too early, some of your candidates dropped out pretty close to the primary, and people who voted for Buttigieg and for Klobuchar, their votes pretty much evaporated. There's no do-overs here in California. You vote once, and that's it. So there is that risk, especially in a primary.
Right, and that's why some people are saying if there is an opportunity to change how we vote, maybe looked at a ranked choice model where we can rank our choices, a first place choice, a second place choice, third place choice, et cetera. This might be something to toy with and or experiment with, as some scholars are suggesting or saying.
Yeah. It's only been 200 and something years to try to get this right. We'll see if we can get it.
Okay.
But,
sorry to interrupt, gentlemen, but we do have some returns coming in, I'm told. And this is for Proposition 13. Proposition 13 is the measure that would, it's a school bond measure, and it would raise money to make improvements to local schools, public schools, community colleges, and universities. And right now, with the early returns in, this is with 4% of the precincts reporting, 57% are saying no.
Yeah, that's the one that, opponents said a couple of things. One, that the state has a surplus now, there's no need for this. And others saying that the possibility exists that in order to pay off those bonds, our property taxes might go up. So both of those things are things that the opponents have been saying. We have a cut-in coming up in just a couple of minutes, so we'll be back on ABC 7.
Live from ABC 7, this is your voice, your vote, the California primary.
This is an Eyewitness News Super Tuesday update. I'm Mark Brown.
I'm Michelle Tuzzi. Here's a look at the California primary results for the Democratic presidential race. Right now, we have Bernie Sanders in the lead with 27.5% of the vote. Michael Bloomberg with 19.7%. Remember, these are early returns.
And following Bloomberg, I believe it's Joe Biden, the former vice president, in third place, has been with these early returns, followed by Pete Buttigieg, who, of course, dropped out. We'll get those names in later on. But in the meantime, we have team coverage. Josh Haskell at an Echo Park rally for Bernie Sanders. Jory Rand at a Baldwin Hills rally where Joe Biden spoke to his supporters tonight. And we begin with Jory.
Yeah, and it's going to be important how much of the vote Joe Biden winds up getting in California. You get 0 delegates unless you hit a 15% threshold. So if it remains like that, it's going to be close for Joe Biden. But elsewhere, it has been a stunning display for the former vice president today, winning states he wasn't expected to win and taking states where candidates have just dropped out and endorsed him. Talking about Minnesota, which Joe Biden has won. Massachusetts, Elizabeth Warren is still in the race. That's her home state. And ABC News projecting that Joe Biden will, in fact, win Massachusetts, Virginia, North Carolina, several states throughout the South. We don't know what's happening here in California, but Joe Biden took the stage here tonight as if he was the victor. Take a listen to what he had to say.
Folks, that's why we need an economy that rewards work, not just wealth. Reestablishes the middle class, and this time brings everybody along. Everybody. Regardless of their race, their ethnicity, whether their gender, their disability, their economic state, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, every stripe. Look, like we did in South Carolina, like we did across America today, like we'll do on all the way to the White House.
Now, the night was nearly marred when two animal rights activists took to the stage behind Joe Biden, each of them getting frighteningly close to the candidate. In fact, Joe Biden's wife, Dr. Jill Biden, was among those physically putting herself between Joe Biden and the woman who had climbed up on stage behind him. Finally, security detail made it on the stage and got both of those women off, but it was a stunning lack of security to allow those two women to get so close to Joe Biden. For now, we're live in Baldwin Hills. Jory Rand, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
Boy, those were some scary moments. Jory, thank you very much. And let's check in now with our Josh Haskell. He is at a Bernie Sanders watch party, and they must be pretty fired up right now, Josh, because right now things are looking good for Sanders in California.
That's right. I actually was just talking to Sanders' LA County Director, and he was in tears, crying because of the results that they're getting in, hugging another staff member on the campaign, just so happy with what we've been hearing so far. Earlier, Mark and Michelle, we were at Logan Street Elementary, and we were reporting on the lines. A couple hundred people were in line, and then we came over here to Echoplex, where that Bernie Sanders watch party is going to be starting very shortly. But you guys have been talking about that injunction that the Sanders campaign has filed with LA County. And I just want to give a little bit more reporting. Was first told by a spokesperson with the Sanders campaign. They were telling folks earlier that if you turn off your television, you will wake up tonight to a different race. And that is really what they're feeling as these California returns come in, and they are still feeling good about Texas. This injunction, the Sanders campaign is citing issues including long wait times, up to 4 hours in Los Angeles as the reason for filing this injunction. They are requesting that the polls stay open for 2 additional hours and that voters who arrive after 8 are provided with a provisional ballot. Bernie Sanders spoke a little while ago in Vermont. This is what he had to say about California.
I'm cautiously optimistic that later in the evening we can win the largest state in this country, the state of California. We are going to win the Democratic nomination.
Okay, but
All right, that's it for us for this break. We're going to send you back to ABC News Super Tuesday coverage and bring you another local eyewitness news update in about half an hour.
welcome back to our streaming coverage here on abc7.com and on our app, ABC7 Los Angeles. We've been talking about some voting problems here in Los Angeles County, and joining us now live is Dr. Michael Alvarez, professor of political science at Caltech, and he is also currently the director of Caltech and MIT's Voting Technology Project. Dr. Alvarez, are you with us? Can you hear us? We're trying to connect with him. Okay, apparently we can't make that connection right now. He is there. Okay, there we have you. All right, nice to see you, Dr. Alvarez. Sorry about that. We were having a little difficulty connecting with you, and you are live at KPCC. Good evening to you. And this is not the first time that we have seen problems with voting. We saw it in Iowa this season with problems getting the vote tallied, problems with an app that was being used. And now here in Los Angeles County, we're seeing a lot of problems. In fact, 30 minutes after the polls have closed, we're seeing still long lines in many places. What do you think is happening here?
Well, there's two things. One is that there's really a great deal of excitement and enthusiasm in this election, which is fantastic to see. The fact that people are willing to come out and vote and stand in these long lines to just cast their ballot in a primary election is a wonderful thing to see. They want to participate in the democracy. But what we're also seeing is California is in the midst of a very long process of election reform. We've been, trying to make the process more convenient, easier, and more accessible for voters of all sorts. And so what we're seeing now is just that process is finally getting to the end. And we now have, voters can cast votes by mail. They can get their ballot by mail and drop it off. They can show up and vote. They can actually register to vote conditionally on election day. So, all these election reforms make the process, in some cases, a lot slower, a lot more cumbersome. And it puts a lot of pressure on our polling places when there's so many people who want to turn out to vote.
As somebody who's not an expert, I am not an expert, I'm just a voter. But I wonder, we've been at this, as I've been saying, as I've been joking, for 200 odd years, and we're still in search of a system that is convenient, accessible, inclusive, and I would like to add quick to that, where people can get the voting done quickly and that we can get the results quickly. And it seems like we're still pretty far away from that, aren't we?
We are, and I would add another thing to that long list, and that's security. We want to make sure that the process is as secure as possible. And so with all of those different attributes and all those needs, it's very, very difficult to design an electoral process that's going to work really easily and really quickly in places as large as Los Angeles County or as states as large as California. It's a very complicated process. The logistics of it are very complicated. And just trying to make sure that everyone has the right to vote and they're able to cast their ballot is a very difficult enterprise. You might think it's a simple thing, but in the U.S. and in California in particular, we have some of the most complicated elections that you see in the world.
Right, but going back to the way we used to vote in California with the Incumbent machines, I go back to that because to me I thought it was such an easy way to vote. And it's what we were used to for so many years. And after the hanging Chad debacle of Florida, we learned to check our ballots, and we learned with the Incumbent system to make sure we blotted in correctly and to check when we were done that everything wasn't a little halfways, that it was clearly marked. And so we got pretty well trained with that. And then comes this $300 million rollout of this electronic system, and we're seeing a lot of problems with it today. Do you think it was worth the $300 million investment to get all these fancy machines when the Incumbent system seemed to work okay? Or am I wrong? Did it not work okay? Is it archaic? Did it need to be updated?
Yeah, it was super archaic, and in fact, to go back to many of those attributes of an electoral process or a voting system that we talked about, accessibility, security, usability, the Incumbent just failed on all those different dimensions. And the new system that we have, it's a complicated system because it has to do a lot of different things. It's not only a system that allows people to mark their ballots and scan them to make sure that there aren't any mistakes on their ballot, it also is a system that requires that people check in. And so one of the two different processes that are going on in the polling places today and have been going on for the last 11 days, the combination of those two is just sometimes causing problems. And what we're seeing in this election is that there's, again, an unprecedented amount of interest and enthusiasm. A lot of people are turning out to vote. And it's putting pressure on this brand new system that poll workers and polling place workers are trying out for the first time. And we as voters, in many cases, are trying out for the first time. I really expect that come November, that the process will be a lot smoother because we're going to all be used to it. And we're going to be doing things like, for example, I don't know if you had the opportunity to use the interactive sample ballot or the poll pass, which I used to mark my ballot. It was a fantastic thing to be able to do, and it sped my voting process up considerably.
Okay. Well, Dr. Alvarez, thank you very much from Caltech, reporting to us from the offices of KPCC. Thank you very much. And we'll, as the days wear on and when we don't have results, we may be re-interviewing you about this. The Bernie Sanders folks, you might call it a firewall. They're looking at California as a place where they are hoping to do very well tonight, still, even in spite of Joe Biden's resurgence. Eyewitness News reporter Josh Haskell is at a watch party with Sanders supporters tonight. Josh.
And Mark, listening to that interview, I also just want to point out what we've been reporting for weeks is the lower number of polling locations in LA County. Those vote centers, those numbers were reduced significantly. And really the process was to bring more people in. But as you pointed out, Mark, today wasn't the only day to vote. Election day has been going on in many places since February 22nd. Today was the last day, and it does seem like a lot of people waited until today. We have seen lines before on many elections, but it does seem like the amount of people and that technology issues that we were reporting earlier have really slowed things in. I want to bring in two folks with me here at this Bernie Sanders LA Watch Party. Daniel Andalan, you are with the LA County office of Bernie Sanders, and you're also a field director here, Lewis Myers. Daniel, tell us the latest what you can about this injunction that the campaign has filed.
Yeah, well, look, we're not at the table with the attorneys. We were charged with ensuring that people came out to vote. I can assure you that what we are concerned about, number one, is that people's voices be heard at the polls today. So our goal and our time today was spent in the field making sure that the fine folks of LA County Registrar's office had the support. We have field staff out there handing out snacks and just spending the time with the voters. People want to vote. They're still in line right now.
But what have you seen that would cause something like this, some concerns, to make sure that everyone who did go out does get to vote?
Well, what we have seen is massive turnout for Bernie Sanders, and we're really excited about that. I mean, in a lot of ways, this is a demonstration of people-powered campaign, and perhaps the county wasn't ready for it. But you know, this is the momentum, and this is what's going to carry us through to Super Tuesday and the following states.
A few minutes ago, I saw you guys embracing, you were hugging, you were in tears. Tell us why.
We're middle-aged guys, dads from Northeast Los Angeles. Our wives are teachers, they're educators. Collectively, we got 8 kids. He's got 5, I got 3. And this campaign was about that. It was about family. It was about communities. It was about empowering communities that normally don't get this kind of attention that Bernie Sanders put, not only with resources, but with staff. We have the largest operation in the country, in the state of California. We have a ton of volunteers that have come out, literally in the thousands. Our field director can talk a little bit about that.
But you guys are feeling good about the results and what you've heard so far?
No, absolutely. We're feeling good. And also, I'd like to say we're feeling grateful that Bernie Sanders entrusted Los Angeles County, the largest county in the country and bigger than most states in our country, again, with the two of us. And Chuck Rocha, the senior advisor for Bernie Sanders, asked us at the beginning of this campaign to scale up Los Angeles and make sure that Los Angeles carries the rest of the state, the rest of California. And we're honored that they entrusted this very critical mission for us. And that's all I can say. That's why we got a little emotional there earlier.
Fully understand. The numbers are just astounding. I mean, 11 visits by Bernie Sanders, 23 offices throughout the state in places that candidates don't normally go, like the Inland Empire, not just LA County. And I believe it was 1.5 million doors that have been knocked on by your team.
Absolutely. The state of California is the most incredible team I believe, in the presidential campaign. And again, for the vision of Chuck Rocha, but also led by our state director, Rafa Navar. And from San Francisco down to San Diego, from Sacramento down to the Inland Empire.
It would not be appropriate if we didn't give a shout out to our California team. We have, like you said, we have offices up and down the state in some of the most rural areas of California. Our campaign was where the voters were. We went out there, we met the voters, and that's why we're having this incredible turnout. That's why we want to make sure people get the opportunity to be heard at the polls, and we're excited about that.
Thank you so much.
If I may, do you know why Latinos come out to vote? Because we bother to ask them. Absolutely. Because we bother to engage them in this process. And that's why we're here, this is who we are, and this is why we're going to win.
That's something I saw covering the rally at the LA Convention Center the other night, 15,000 people there. Thank you so much for talking to us. We have not projected California yet, but these folks with the Sanders campaign, Mark and Michelle, clearly feeling very good, and things are just getting underway here at the Echoplex here in Echo Park. This party will certainly go late into the night, I can tell you. They haven't even let folks in yet. It was so loud inside, though, that we had to move here outside to the courtyard. That line of people waiting to get in extends down the block, and we'll, of course, have more reporting from here in Echo Park as the night goes on. I'll send it back to you.
Okay. Hopefully we'll see you inside later on there this evening. Josh Haskell, thanks for that live report. Here are the latest returns now from the California primary, with just 7% of precincts reporting Bernie Sanders with 26.9% of the vote, and Michael Bloomberg coming in second at this point with 19.2%. And then if we switch to the next screen, we'll see Joe Biden with 17% and Pete Buttigieg, who dropped out, with 11.7%. A lot of people, oh, here we have another one, Elizabeth Warren with 11.2%, and Amy Klobuchar, who also dropped out, with 5.8%.
That's with 7% of the precincts reporting. And it's going to be a long time before we know the results statewide in California, with LA County bringing up the rear with all of both the numbers and the different types of ballots that have been cast. It could take till the end of the week, perhaps, to know for sure. Let's go next to Orange County. Our reporter Jessica DeNova is live at Cal State Fullerton, where people there are still in line to vote now, 42 minutes after the polls are supposed to have closed. Jessica?
That's right, Mark. They have every right to be here. Most of them students have been here. They got here by 8 o'clock, so of course they are allowed to stay and vote. Some people telling me that they've been here a little bit more than an hour. This is one of nearly 200 vote centers in Orange County, which is new this year. People can vote anywhere in the county. They don't have to vote in their home precinct. These two young women here, let me see if I can show this. They have a timer going to see how long they've been in line. You can see there. Just under an hour, but let's make our way over to the front here. Now, what I was told by a campaign staffer is that the line is taking a little longer on campuses because a lot of these students are from outside the county, so they have to cast provisional ballots. That's why these lines and their votes are taking a little longer to process. This is the story we're hearing at several local campuses throughout Orange County, including Santa Ana College and the University of California in Irvine. With me here, I have Crystal and Chanel, who have been waiting a little more than an hour, right?
Yeah, about an hour and a half.
All right, excellent. And is it worth the wait to you?
For me, it's worth the wait. I want my voice to be heard in this country, especially as a Black woman. So I'm glad to wait an hour and a half. Yeah.
Excellent. How does this compare to past wait times for you when you voted? And was it here on campus?
So for me, in the past, I have voted on campus and it was shorter. I think I was done in about 30 minutes. So this is a little bit different, but also I did come later than I normally do. Normally I come around like noon or something like that, and I'm in and I'm out.
Anything that you're keeping your eye on of particular interest to you that you'd be comfortable sharing with us?
Yeah, for me, I'm voting for Sanders, so I'm rooting for him. So yeah, I definitely want that vote to be counted to hopefully go towards him winning this primary.
Okay, what about getting the vote out for young people? Is that something that you're seeing more of as a college student? What are you seeing within your college community here at CSUF?
Yeah, I think you can clearly see that from all these college students in line this late at night waiting to vote, that young people want to have their voices heard and they want to make a difference in the political landscape that we have now. And definitely I feel like people are turning up more and more each year.
Excellent, Chanel. Thank you so much for your time. Seeing a lot of heads nodding here in agreement with Chanel and her friend here, Rachel. Crystal, I'm so sorry about that. Crystal Gonzalez here, also a student at CSUF. Now, Crystal, tell me, why is it important for you to be here today?
Well, today's actually my first time voting, so I've never voted before, and so I just wanted to get the one experience of voting for the first time and also getting my voice heard, because I think it's important to get your voice heard.
Okay, are there any issues that you have faced either as a woman or a college student, are you a resident here of Orange County, that are of importance to you?
At the moment, not anything that I can think of, but yeah, thank you.
Excellent. A message for anyone who maybe didn't make it out to the polls today, anything that you want to say to them now that you've experienced this voting privilege firsthand, this right?
I just want to say that it is worth it to come and vote. So if you can take time out of your busy schedule to come and vote, I think it's important. So maybe you didn't make it to this election, but maybe the next one would be great.
All right, excellent so much. So thank you both so much for taking the time to speak with us. Hearing a lot of clapping out here now. I'm told that campaign staffers were out here earlier helping these students out, making sure that they stay out here and let their voices be heard. They gave them some snacks, some water, to keep the energy going and keep them out here and making sure their voices are heard. Reporting live in Fullerton, Jessica Venova, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
Okay, Jessica, thank you. And we're going to stay with the news coming out of Orange County right now and take a look at some of the congressional races happening. And this is for the U.S. House District 39. You have Young Kim, the Republican, going up against Gil Cisneros. And Gil Cisneros is the incumbent here. And again, these are very early returns. Young Kim is ahead with 58% of the vote. Gil Cisneros with 36% of the vote. But you may recall in 2018, what happened with the vote, it was the same two people. Mm-hmm. And it was so close that Young Kim was ahead on election night. And then the votes came in so late that it came time for orientation for House members that Young Kim went to attend House orientation in Washington, and days later, Gil Cisneros was declared the winner and won. Yep. And was subsequently sworn in. And had to get oriented. Okay, this is still very early, but it's just interesting to see how it's flipped right now. Yeah, and
let's go to District 45. Katie Porter, a brand new incumbent there, just won that seat, flipped it up against Greg Raths, the new Republican there. And she, at the moment, is winning, is handily ahead, 42, almost 43% to almost 21%. Again, very low numbers yet. Not sure what this means yet, but it does bode well that she is ahead for her. Right now, she had flipped this district just 2 years ago.
And Harley Rauda is the incumbent in this race, and right now he is trailing to Michael Steele, the Republican. 39% for Harley, and Michelle with 40% of the vote. Interestingly, Harley Rauda, or Ruda, is it Rauda or Ruda? I'm sorry if I'm getting that wrong. Going with Rauda right now. He unseated Dana Rohrabacher, the Republican, who had been in that seat for a very long time, 15 terms. And he unseated Dana Rohrabacher in the midterm elections. And with these early returns right now, he is trailing Michelle Steele. So it'll be interesting to see if it flips again back to the Republicans. Yeah, these are seats that are in play right now. And I want to bring in Dr. Boris Ricks of Cal State Northridge, political scientist. What are when you talk about the turnout and things that might be driving turnout, some of the local races, we've been talking about the national scene, but also some of these local races, the turnout, the high turnout may affect them.
Absolutely, absolutely. For example, we're going to be electing a new county supervisor in Los Angeles County. Los Angeles County is divided up into 5 supervisorial districts. Each of those districts represents about 2 million people. So in total, you're talking about 10 million people within the county. So some of these districts are larger than small states. So the second supervisor race will be very interesting because this is a seat that has the majority of African Americans in the second district. And you have 3 choices in this race. Well, there's a number of choices, but there are 3 who happen to be African Americans who are running to represent the African American community in the second district. There's Jan Perry, and there is
Herb Wesson.
Herb Wesson and Jan Perry, and then there's our Senator Holly Mitchell. So this is going to be an interesting race. You're either going to elect only the second African American supervisor woman, or only the second African American supervisor male, one of the two. So it's a very important race. The budget for Los Angeles County is $36 billion, and these individuals serve 12-year terms.
Yeah, a lot of power.
So there's a lot of power in the second supervisorial district and the county supervisors in Los Angeles County. largest county in the country.
We're going to keep a close watch on that, and we're going to keep a close watch on what's happening out in Riverside County tonight as well. We have Inland Empire Bureau Chief Rob McMillan live to show us how the vote is taking place at his location. Rob.
Well, Mark, Michelle, I really feel like I'm on a different planet compared to you guys out there talking about the long lines. Mark saying at one place it was a 2-hour wait and then a 1-hour wait at the same place, and then his wife going back to that spot waiting 40 minutes as of right now. Well, out here in Riverside County, we're at election headquarters, really. This is the Registrar of Voters in Riverside, and the longest wait time here was 15 to 20 minutes, and that was for the last 2 to 3 hours of the day, right up until polls closed at 8 o'clock. Let's show you some video that we shot just slightly before the polls closed, and you could see that people were driving up to drop off their mail-in ballots at the registrar's office. There were also people coming in to vote here. Again, the line only lasted about 15-20 minutes at its busiest point. Here they are using a lot of new equipment this presidential primary in Riverside County. First off, right here at election headquarters, they have a new set of ballot scanners, which means the county can now scan up to 90,000 ballots per hour. They also have new equipment to verify all of the signatures on vote-by-mail ballots. They used to only be able to get to about 20,000 per day, but with the new equipment, they can verify close to 80,000 signatures a day. All of that should help us get results out much faster. And there's a new piece of equipment that voters were using at polling places. It's called a ballot marker, kind of like an iPad, so people don't need to use a pen and paper anymore unless they want to.
The way these tablets work is it helps voters mark their ballot. So it's a very easy to use tablet. They make their selections, and then it will mark the ballot for them and then print out on a printer that's only connected to that tablet. They have then the opportunity to review that ballot before they walk it over to the ballot box and cast it.
Again, that device is not connected to the internet at all. It just allows you to use an electronic device to print the paper ballot, then you take it in and drop it off. Now, some of the early returns here in Riverside County are coming in. As far as the race for Riverside Mayor, that's one of the big races out here. Andy Melendrez is leading his closest competitor by a few percentage points right now, but it's still very, very early. Live in Riverside, Rob McMillan, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
All right, Rob, thank you. Looking at the national race now, we've got to look at, of course, the president wasn't going to go through the night without tweeting, and he certainly has. One of the things he reacted to was Elizabeth Warren losing in Massachusetts, coming in third place. He wrote, Elizabeth Pocahontas Warren, other than Mini Mike, referring to Mike Bloomberg, was the loser of the night. She didn't even come close to winning her home state of Massachusetts. Well, now she can just sit back with her husband and have a nice cold beer. That's from Donald Trump. And the response from Joe Biden, he retweeted that and responded, you lost tonight, real Donald Trump. Democrats around the country are fired up. We are decent, brave, and resilient people. We are better than you. Come November, we are going to beat you. That is the way politics goes these days. People sniping at each other on Twitter.
Well, I wonder how that plays in the classroom. Dr. Ricks, you're with young people all the time as a professor at Cal State Northridge, and you're talking about political science with them. And we're living in this age of social media, and students are on social media, in a very large number.
Absolutely.
What do you hear from your students about, when politicians tweet and it's not always nice? How do they feel about that? Are they just like used to it because they're on social media? They grew up with not grew up with it. A lot of them are, it came while they were, later in their teen years or whatever. But what's their reaction to it? Do they think it's okay, or are they turned off?
I teach a large section, a 155 section. That's one of our large sections at Cal State Northridge, 230 students. And we have discussions, and we break into small learning communities and have discussions. And what our students, they actually get a kick out of it. They actually get a kick out of it. As a matter of fact, they actually really, really enjoy it. And what we're starting to find very interesting is the students like Saturday Night Live. They like these comedic clips of real life scenarios that involve politicians. So the skits and what have you are what students are coming to school, and they're associating the skits with some of the lesson plans. So if nothing else, it's helping students to associate with something that's in the text.
Okay.
So that's a good thing.
We're going to have to cut it off here. We're going to pause for our online presence here. We're going to be on the air on ABC 7 in just a couple of minutes, or a couple of seconds now. So we'll see you in just a couple minutes.
Live from ABC 7, this is Your Voice, Your Vote, the California primary.
This is an Eyewitness News Super Tuesday update. Good evening, I'm Michelle Tuzzi.
I'm Mark Brown. The big storyline nearly 1 hour after the polls closed is that many people are still waiting to cast their ballots. You're looking at them right there. This video from West LA just a short time ago. LA County just starting to release results, so Eyewitness News and ABC News are not yet making a call in the Democratic presidential primary here in California. The Bernie Sanders campaign filed a petition to try to keep the polls open until 10 p.m. LA County reviewing that request.
Eyewitness News reporter Eileen Frere is live at a polling place in West Hollywood, where we have seen long lines tonight. Eileen, what are you seeing now?
Oh, Mark and Michelle, still very long lines here, very slow going at this location. We are at 838 West Knoll Drive in West Hollywood. We have video to show you of how long the line is. This video was probably about an hour and a half ago. It goes way down the street, around the corner. Some people telling us they've been waiting 3.5 hours to vote. One voter said that he's lived in West Hollywood more than 20 years. He's never seen lines like this. One polling station worker saying, unlike some locations where some booths have gone down, all the machines at this location are working. However, there is just such a huge turnout. That worker telling us, in talking with voters, many said that they were waiting until now to vote because they wanted to make sure their candidate did not drop out of the race. Others say they did not know that they could vote early. Everyone we talked with said they plan to wait, though, no matter how long to vote, saying this election is just too important.
Okay, Eileen, thanks for the update. And we're going to send you back to ABC News Super Tuesday coverage. And we will bring you another local Eyewitness News update in a half hour. And we'll be streaming live right now on abc7.com.
Good evening, everybody. We are here, Your Voice, Your Vote, our coverage of Super Tuesday tonight. I want to bring Dr. Boris Ricks from Cal State Northridge back in with us now, a political scientist and one who has studied this for many years. The narrative for much of the evening has been how Joe Biden has really had a resurgence here. Would you say that California is essentially Bernie's firewall at this point? If he does poorly here, does the narrative really become one of Sanders dropping and Biden dominating?
I think California is going to be huge. It's going to be huge. As a matter of fact, the Sanders team has been in California entrenched since 2017, since the beginning of 2017, making preparations. So they have done an enormous job in getting their field team out and their grassroots operation and the GOTV program. So they've been doing some real good work, and it's starting to pay off, and it's paying off in a similar fashion as it paid off in Nevada and California. But I still think that it's a little early, and I think that there's definitely going to be an uptick, I believe, in African-American voter turnout in Los Angeles County, which is going to drive the turnout in California, I believe. So it's going to be interesting to see how black voters are going to turn out and vote. It looks like older black voters, voters who are regular voters, which means they vote not only in presidential elections but local elections as well. It looks like they might be leaning more toward Biden. First-time voters and new voters and voters who don't vote as frequently and or as regular it looks like they're leaning toward the Sanders campaign. So we're going to see what that means in a few hours here.
It's interesting that Bernie Sanders is the oldest candidate He'll be turning 79 in September, and he has the youngest demographic in terms of supporters.
Has an interesting appeal amongst millennials. And the appeal is, I can't figure out the appeal, but what some are suggesting the appeal is anti-government and anti-big business, relying on grassroots, relying on restoring an economy to everyday average folk, and redistributing some of the wealth that's in the hands of that upper 3%.
Mm-hmm.
So this message is a message that resonates with young people who have grown up seeing their family members struggling, working 2 and 3 jobs to try to make ends meet to provide for them. So a lot of them are first generation college students, first generation in a number of ways. So this is a way that they can support their families by supporting a candidate who, for a lot, it'll be their first time voting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so it's very interesting.
And a lot of young people, too, are struggling these days. A lot of people are having trouble launching themselves into adulthood because they're either saddled with student loan debt in the hundreds of thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars, the equivalent of buying a house without, the mortgage or the ability to even get out from under it by declaring bankruptcy. A lot of those folks are looking to Bernie Sanders and what he says about college tuition.
Absolutely.
And it makes sense to them.
Absolutely. If there is a candidate who is speaking about reducing the cost of college tuition, if there's a candidate who is speaking about doing something to eliminate the enormous student loan debt, these two things really resonate with various communities, and particularly our students, particularly students of color, and particularly students who struggle, particularly the mom who decides she wants to go back to school to take care of her family, the single mom and what have you. So these cohort groups are certainly groups that the message of decreasing the cost of college and eliminating student loan debt and making college more accessible in terms of application and admission process, these things will really resonate amongst those groups, those cohorts.
All right. Well, we're going to get a check on the voting that's taking place still at this hour. The polls closed at 8 o'clock in California, but so many people are still in line waiting to vote, including at a voting place in Baldwin Hills. And we have our Chris Christie overhead now in Air 7 HD to give us a look at that. Chris?
Copy.
Go ahead, Chris.
Hey, Chris.
Hey there, guys. We're up over Obama Avenue here at the Los Angeles Baha'i Center, and you can see a rather short line, not too bad here, folks, waiting in line, trying to get their votes in before the polls do close. Don't have an update yet on whether they're going to keep the polls open much longer. Of course, that injunction was requested about an hour ago to keep the polls open until about 10 o'clock. At this point, still waiting for word on whether they're going to do that, but this location happens to be pretty manageable as these folks get their votes in. Guys, back over to you.
All right, one thing I noticed today, once you got inside, it was kind of like one of those rides at an amusement park where you get into the covered part and then you got the line snaking back and forth inside there. So that was discouraging when I got to the at my polling place. Another observation. So many dogs. People bringing their dogs with them to vote. I've seen so much of that today. just a thought. I don't know what that means. Who's going to win? I doubt if that has any impact at all. But former Vice President Joe Biden wrapping up a very passionate speech at a campaign rally not far from where Chris Christie was in Baldwin Hills, and Jory Rand has been there.
Yeah, Mark, we can actually see Air 7 HD right now overhead here in Baldwin Hills. As you can see, we have moved locations. They have broken down the stage, they've broken down the media risers, and the Biden campaign has packed up and moved on. They have a lot of work to do because suddenly they're back in this thing. Just a couple days ago, their campaign was considered dead. And really, by all accounts, and the results in the first 3 states to vote, that was accurate. Then came South Carolina, and it turned everything around. And it's interesting to see states that had early voting and how Joe Biden is faring there compared to states that are only voting today, where he is dominating. I mean, he's dominating. Virginia, over 50% of the vote, a state that Sanders led. North Carolina, Joe Biden wins this state, a state where Bernie Sanders led in the polling. He's won in Minnesota, where Joe Biden was under 10% just days ago until Amy Klobuchar dropped out and endorsed him. Joe Biden winning Massachusetts. It's a stunning display of what he's done today. Sounded like a victory, but his speech was nearly marred by 2 protesters who jumped on stage, animal animal rights activists who are anti-dairy, holding signs saying "Let dairy die," got frighteningly close to the former vice president. The first person was picked up and carried off stage by a security detail. The second woman who climbed up on stage behind Joe Biden, Dr. Jill Biden, Joe's wife, was one of those who physically kept that woman from reaching her husband. And so a lapse in security here tonight, that will surely be changed, and we'll see if the Secret Service gets involved in protecting Joe Biden from here on forward. Vice presidents don't get security details from the Secret Service. At this point in the race, Donald Trump 4 years ago had Secret Service detail. But as for the night itself, Joe Biden considers it a victory regardless of whether he takes California. Take a listen to a little bit of what he had to say just a short time ago.
It's a good night. It's a good night. And it seems to be getting even better. They don't call Super Tuesday for nothing. People are talking about a revolution. We started a movement. We've increased turnout. And the turnout's turned out for us. That can deliver us to a moment where we can do extraordinary things.
All right, so Joe Biden feeling like a victor tonight, still awaiting the results in Texas and California, 2 more big prizes. The state itself will go to Bernie Sanders. But as long as Joe Biden gets 15% or more of the vote, he will pick up delegates. This isn't about states. This is, of course, about delegates. It's not winner take all. And so all he has to do is stay in this race. If the momentum carries, he's in good shape moving forward. But will either one of them, Bernie Sanders or Joe Biden, make it to 1991 and get a majority, or will this go to a split convention, which could mean utter chaos? We'll see moving forward, but it was a big night for Joe Biden, and it sounded like it here tonight. We're live in Baldwin Hills. Jory Redd, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
Okay, Jory, thank you. And another race that we are following very closely tonight is that for the LA County District Attorney Jackie Lacey, the incumbent, versus George Cascone, former DA of San Francisco, who is now speaking. Let's listen in.
It's really about bringing everybody together. Whether you live on the south side of LA or on the east side, or whether you're in Lancaster, Pomona, on the foothills, or around the ocean, it doesn't matter what your socioeconomic status is, what you believe in, what you pray for, whether you're gay or straight. This is really a movement for our entire community. And if I get to be elected, we will all be working together to bring LA County and the nation into the 21st century. We know that we have very early results, and they're coming in pretty much the way that we anticipated. You know, we knew that the early absentee votes will not necessarily be where we're going to be as strong, but we believe that as the evening develops, we'll continue to do better, and other people will stay pretty much where they are. That's absolutely what we hope for, obviously. Thank you so much, all of you, for being here. And again, thank you to all of you that have been with me through this journey. And, you know, you're signed up for a long journey, by the way, okay? And, you know, thank you. Thank you so much. And we'll get together again in a little while, probably around 10 o'clock. I'm going to do a little piece in Spanish now for our friends in the channels in español. Y de ahí vamos a tomar un break. That was Spanglish, very LA, right? Primero que nada, es un honor estar aquí hoy con todos ustedes, con mi familia, mi esposa, mis hijas, mis yernos que están ahí atrás, todas las personas que nos han apoyado, tantos amigos que tenemos que nos han ayudado en este increíble viaje que hemos tenido. Hemos estado en una campaña en 127 días. En ese periodo hemos podido recaudar más fondos, hemos podido hablar con más gente y obtener más apoyo. Hemos tenido el apoyo de todos los periódicos grandes, de los clubes, del Partido Demócrata. Y yo creo que esto verdaderamente es una reflexión de que esto no es una elección de una persona, pero es un movimiento nacional, es un movimiento para traer el sistema judicial en el siglo XXI. No podemos continuar con las prácticas de 30, 40 años atrás y esperar que los resultados van a ser diferentes. Queremos traer un sistema que va a ser mucho más humano, que va a ser mucho más efectivo, que va a tratar a todo el mundo con respeto y estoy muy emocionado. Sabemos que los primeros números han llegado, pero están exactamente donde pensábamos que iban a estar. Sabemos que al principio los números iban a ser un poco bajos para nosotros y pensamos que después durante la noche van a incrementar.
George Cascone nació en Cuba, habla español, so he's born in Cuba. Former LA police officer before ascending through various means to be district attorney in San Francisco. Speaking to his supporters tonight, not claiming victory yet, no numbers yet really in the district attorney's race, so just addressing his supporters, thanking them for their support tonight.
Okay, we're going to check back in now with Dr. Michael Alvarez. He is a professor of political science at Caltech, and he joins us now live from KPCC in Pasadena. Dr. Alvarez, thank you so much for being with us this evening. We have been talking about some of the long lines, some of the issues that we've been seeing with the voting process today, specifically in Los Angeles County. What would you say is your overall assessment right now? Are we just in the process of being in a learning curve, and this is all going to work its way out by the time the presidential election rolls around? Is that what you think, or otherwise?
I think that's exactly it. You know, we're going to see again, I think in November, very, very large, very strong turnout. So I think that the numbers of people who are going to be voting is going to be very similar. But I do think that in some ways, you know, and this is why I've been encouraging, you know, my friends and family and everybody to just be as patient as possible, because you know, we're testing out essentially at a very large scale a new voting system here in LA and also in Orange County today. And so I think that as we test this out, you know, the poll workers and our county election officials are really going to learn a lot. And of course, at Caltech and various of the universities throughout Southern California, we're doing a lot of research that's going to pass back to the election officials. And I'm certain that there will be improvements by November.
Okay, and the key thing, a key element of this is that it not be hackable. LA County system, not hackable, right? It's not connected to the internet.
Well, that's one of the, well, that is one of the main things that we're doing a lot of research on. Is we're really focused right now on just trying to help our election officials throughout Southern California, across the country, ensure the integrity of the electoral process. And that's not just the voting machines. Maintaining the security of the voting machines is very important. It's also maintaining the security of the data that underlies the electoral process, in particular our voter registration databases. And so we're doing a lot of work, both research as well as work with the counties to try to help them buttress the security of the election infrastructure.
Whenever we see problems with electronic voting on social media, it lights up with comments from people saying, why can't we just go back to paper ballots? How would you answer that question? Why can't we go back to paper ballots?
Well, the problem we have, especially here in California, is that our ballots are incredibly complicated. I mean, think about what you were asked to vote upon if you went to the polling place today. It wasn't just voting in that presidential race, which of course had a large number of candidates. It was voting in our local municipal elections. It was voting in all the judicial races. It's voting on the ballot measures. And it's also voting for, you know, here in Pasadena for mayor and for city council, board of supervisors. We have long and incredibly complicated ballots. That makes it very logistically difficult to have simple paper ballots. But I just really want to remind everyone that in essence, we really are voting on paper in Southern California, in LA and in Orange County, because what we do with those touchscreen machines here in LA County is we're simply marking a paper ballot. All that touchscreen does is it marks the paper ballot. You have an opportunity to look at that paper ballot, you scan the paper ballot back in, and that's the ballot that gets counted when they tabulate the votes. So we're just using the technology to mark a voter verifiable paper ballot.
And I guess when you talk about changing voter behavior, which is ultimately what they want to do, if more people voted early, if more people voted by mail, we wouldn't be seeing these long lines, right? Even though the machines aren't always working in all these spots, there's malfunctions, there's glitches here and there. But bottom line, if there was a less of a demand on election day itself, we'd probably wouldn't be seeing this, correct?
Yes, that's correct. And that's exactly what I think our election officials want to move towards in the future. One of the big differences that we saw in LA County versus Orange County over the last 11 days is there were fewer lines and less problems in Orange County. Now, I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that Orange County made more extensive use of voting by mail in this election. Mm-hmm. And, you know, in the future, I think that in LA, we're going to see more people requesting those ballots or receiving those ballots. And I do think that's going to take a lot of pressure off the polling place. But as we get into November, there's a lot of simple things that we all can do to make the process easier. For example, bring your sample ballot when you go to vote, because that's easy for them to scan. Take advantage of that poll pass that I was talking about earlier. Just really simple things like that are going to make all of our lives a lot easier in November.
All right, Dr. Michael Alvarez of Caltech, we thank you for your expertise. And we hope, like you do, that things go much more smoothly in November.
I want to learn how to use that poll pass.
Yep.
And Dr. Alvarez, I thank you for bringing that up, because I'm gonna research that, and I want to get savvy with it. So come November, I can do the poll pass, because I had to wait a long time today, and it was a little frustrating. Thank you so much.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay, we're gonna check in with Carlos Granda, who is talking to candidate Herb Wesson, who is a candidate for the LA County Supervisors race seat, District 2, right, Carlos? He is termed out of the City Council and now running for Mark Ridley Thomas's seat.
Right, and it's very rare to have an open seat on the Board of Supervisors, as a matter of fact. It comes up very rarely. Well, we have one now with Mark Ridley Thomas termed out of the Board of Supervisors, and running for that seat is Herb Wesson, who has been for years now the president of the LA City Council, and he is over here right now. We're going to talk to him in just a moment. Let's go over there. Actually, they've just seen the first results, which showed a very tight 1 and 2 with State Senator Holly Mitchell. Again, this is a very important position. Board of Supervisors, each seat is about 2 million people. And here's Mr. Wesson now. How are you doing, sir? How's everything?
Good.
So you saw the results. It's very tight right now, 1 and 2. What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm very proud of the campaign that we've run. We ran a very positive campaign. We're excited. It would appear that the voters of this district have decided that they want me to continue. So I'm excited about that. I see different pathways to victory, but the night's very, very young, and the margin is very, very slim. But I'm just excited.
Now, with so many people in this race and so many well-known people such as yourself and Jan Perry and Holly Mitchell, you kind of didn't think it would get the 50%, right?
You always pray.
Right.
You always pray. But mathematically, it was going to be a challenge. And, so I'm just very appreciative to all of the people that went out and to vote. I feel tonight was a good night. We moved the city's elections to this time of year, so that turnout is going to be higher. I'm good about the folk that sided with me and worked for me, and we'll be preparing to move forward.
And you and I had talked that this district, very diverse, and
Yes.
2 million people. I mean, one of the most important positions in the country, represent more people than anyone else. How important is it for you? What do you want to do in this district?
Well, there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and I can't think of anything more importantly than getting people off the street and into a safe place to live, and also make sure that we create opportunities. This country is all about living a better life than your parents so that your kids and grandkids live a better life than you. So I think we in government have a responsibility to create opportunities for young people to realize their version of the American dream. So I anticipate that we're going to have a very spirited campaign. It's going to be a lot of excitement, and the people of this district deserve that.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wesson.
Thank you. It's
Good luck.
deserved.
Thank you.
All right.
And there you see, they've been showing the results right up there, and you can see it's very, very tight right now. Of course, very early results. So that's what they're looking at. But as you can see, this is a very tight race. Again, not expected that anyone's going to get 50% right away. They'll probably have to go to a runoff. But again, very confident at the numbers that he's seeing right now. Reporting live, I'm Carlos Granda. Now back to you.
All right, Carlos, thank you very much. We are trying to get some results in here right now regarding some of the local races, and I'm going to try to look this up right now. While we're doing that, let's go over.
Okay, well, we were
Prop
talking
13 real quick.
Oh, okay. Prop 13, if we have that. Yeah, let's take a look at that. This is the bond measure to raise money to make improvements to schools, public schools, community colleges, universities. And with the early returns right now, 58.4% of voters are saying no. Again, early returns, but these are the returns that we have so far for Proposition 13, not to be confused with the Proposition 13 of 1978.
Right.
And Dr. Rick, so, maybe this is a good question for you. Why would they take a proposition number like 13 that is seared in so many people's memory as the real estate tax proposition and use it again. Like, it seems like certain numbers should be retired, like NBA jerseys. Like, that's it. Once it becomes such a huge measure, maybe it shouldn't be used again because it creates confusion. I don't know.
I'm not
What do you
sure.
think?
I'm not sure I would use the number 13. It's similar to Back to the Future kind of sorta.
Yeah.
And what happens is that at the local level, school bonds need 55%. However, at the state level, you just need a 50+1 majority, right?
Yeah.
And this probably, I mean, if I was reading the tea leaves earlier, I would predict that it's not going to pass.
Wow.
You know, Californians, traditionally don't vote to increase taxes and things of that sort. So I'm not sure this will pass. However, we do need infrastructure in our public schools, and this is certainly something we need with population increases and what have you. So it's going to be interesting to see how, the voters turn out for Proposition 13 for the second time, 2.0.
Yeah, 13, 2.0. Now, this is the race I wanted to get to. We wanted to get to. Numbers are still, we're getting some numbers in. And again, what you were talking about is that the first numbers to be counted are absentee or mail-in votes, and then after that eventually will be the votes that were cast today. But in the DA's race in LA County, Jackie Lacey at this point is up 54.8% to George Gascone's 22.9%. And we were talking about this video that came out just yesterday. It went viral, networks covered it. Very controversial, of the Black Lives Matter protesters showing up at 5:30 in the morning, banging drums outside the house, people going up on her porch, ringing the doorbell, asking to speak to her. Okay, all right, well, we'll get to that. In the meantime, we've got this. Registrar of Voters for LA County, Dean Logan, responding to the attempt for an injunction.
And take your questions. Obviously, today has been a challenging day for Los Angeles County. First and foremost for Los Angeles County voters, so I want to address that first and to just express my appreciation and thanks to the voters who came out to vote today, and my apology for those that are still in line and waiting to vote. My commitment is that we will serve you tonight and make sure that you have the opportunity to cast your ballot, and that ballot will be included in the final returns for this election. Also want to thank the 14,000 plus vote center election workers that worked at the vote centers today. This was a challenge for them as well. As you all know, we rolled out a new voting model in LA County, not just new equipment, but a whole new voting model. And that was a challenge for our traditional election workers, as well as new people who helped support us today as well. And finally, want to thank you and apologize to you for not being as available as I normally am on election night. Obviously, trying to deal with a lot of these issues as we went late into the evening, and I wanted to be sure that we had that handled for the voters first and foremost. So I will say a few things. I think that there's a lot to be.
Live from ABC 7, this is your voice, your vote, the California primary.
Nearly an hour and a half since the polls closed, but many voters are still waiting in line. I'm Mark Brown.
I'm Michelle Tuzzi. This video showing the scene in East LA. LA County is just starting to release results, so Eyewitness News and ABC News are not yet making a call in the Democratic presidential primary. The Bernie Sanders campaign has filed a petition to keep polls open until 10 p.m. The LA Registrar's policy has been, if you show up before 8 p.m., you will be able to vote.
And people are doing it. We've been watching those long lines in West Hollywood all night. Let's check back in with Eyewitness News reporter Eileen Freyer. Eileen?
Oh, Mark and Michelle, still a very long line here at 838 West Knoll Drive in West Hollywood. We had a video to show you of the line taken about 2 hours ago, but the line is still very long. Some people telling us they've been waiting 3.5 hours to vote. We talked with one polling station worker who said that a lot of people just decided to wait to see if their candidate would drop out, which is why they waited until the last minute to vote. Everyone who we spoke with, though, said they wanted to make sure their vote counted.
I don't have a choice. I mean, I've got to get my vote in, but it's disgusting.
Well, I mean, it's obviously an honor and a privilege to vote. Start with that. But a 3-hour wait to get in seems a little excessive.
So a lot of frustration, but people, again, are here to cast their ballot, and they're being allowed to do so as long as they were in line before 8 o'clock tonight. Reporting live from West Hollywood, Eileen Fryer, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
Okay, a late night of voting for a lot of people. Eileen, thank you. Bernie Sanders supporters are hoping he can take California and the White House.
Eyewitness News reporter Josh Haskell live for us in Echo Park, where they're waiting for California results. Josh.
That's right, and we just heard from the Registrar, Dean Logan, calling this a challenging day for LA County voters and apologizing to anyone still in line. Everyone I've spoken to here, they have voted. This is the Bernie Sanders watch party at the Echoplex in Echo Park. But I want to show you some video of what things look like at Logan Street Elementary, where we were a little bit earlier today. There were hundreds of people in line, and that is why we've been reporting on all night about this injunction that has been filed by the Sanders campaign. At that particular location, there were 15 voting machines. 6 of them were not working, and the Sanders campaign says that some folks have been waiting up to 4 hours, and that is why they filed this injunction. They were requesting that the polls stay open for 2 additional hours. I want to show you play some sound for you earlier. Bernie Sanders in Vermont speaking and going after Joe Biden.
One of us in this race led the opposition to the war in Iraq. You're looking at him. One of us stood up for consumers and said we will not support a disastrous bankruptcy bill. One of us led the opposition to disastrous trade agreements which cost us millions of good-paying jobs. And that's me.
And it really has felt like a 2-person race the last 48 hours, and you can hear in those remarks Bernie Sanders going after Joe Biden pretty hard. For now, we're live in Echo Park. Josh Haskell, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
Josh, thank you very much. Earlier this evening, Joe Biden taking the stage in L.A. in front of a wild crowd at the Baldwin Hills Recreation Center. It has been a huge evening for Biden so far. As we speak, he has won 8 states with several contests, still too close to call at this hour. Midway through his speech, however, it was scary. Several anti-dairy protesters got up on stage. They evaded security, and it was pretty frightening for the Bidens, but those protesters were quickly dragged off stage.
Let's take a look now at the California primary results for the Democratic presidential race. Here they are on your screen. Bernie Sanders in the lead now. Michael Bloomberg in second place with 18.8%. Joe Biden coming in third at the moment with 17.2%. Elizabeth Warren in fourth place at 11.6% with 12% of the precincts reporting. Back to ABC News Super Tuesday coverage. We'll be back in about a half an hour.
Stand by for web. And Q on web.
And welcome back to our live local election coverage here on ABC7.com and streaming on our ABC7 Los Angeles app. We are pleased to be joined by Dr. Ricks, who is an assistant professor of political science at Cal State Northridge, as we continue to look at the returns that are coming in tonight. One race in particular that we are following and we've been talking about is the race for district attorney. We were talking earlier about the incumbent, Jackie Lacey, and the video that surfaced yesterday of her husband with his gun as there were protesters outside their home in a sizable number. They came at like 5:30 in the morning. They were loud. They were apparently ringing the doorbell, and the husband comes out with his gun and asked them to leave. We do know that protesters have been interrupting her meetings that she's been trying to hold in public. A recent debate, someone charged at her and had to be removed, and they couldn't even, I don't think they even finished that debate. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure it had to be ended because of the protests. So in light of all that, do you think that that incident that we saw yesterday on the video has perhaps helped her?
I think it may have had an effect.
Mm-hmm.
It probably has helped her a bit. The perception is that people can protect their home. However, a peaceful protest is certainly that, a peaceful protest. I think that maybe those who are elderly and they live alone with no children in their homes, they can empathize with this particular environment, right? And the fear factor is probably what motivated people to empathize with Jackie Lacey, and as a result, may in fact vote along those lines.
Yeah.
If that's the case, she's really cleaning up right now. I mean, these are still early results, but with 54%, some 220,000 votes for Jackie Lacey thus far versus about 92,000 for George Gascone. So not just a lead, but a commanding lead at this stage of the game.
Exactly. Well, the early returns were going to favor Jackie Lacey anyway. The people who are going to come to the polls today, the new voters who have not necessarily made their minds up are a little bit different than those who had already made their minds up and already voted in support of Jackie Lacey. So the early returns are going to be favoring her. As we get closer to the end of the night, we want to see if that number changes.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. We're going to keep you here. That's why we have you here, because you've got the insight and you're helping us understand all of this. One of the ones that's a little complicated is U.S. House District 25, the special election there to replace the member of Congress who had to resign from her seat earlier because of a scandal involving one of her staff members, some inappropriate relationship, and as well as perhaps using her office funding to deal with that. And so what you have here is a special election. That the winner of this would serve out the balance of her term, of the term that expires at the end of this year. And so what you have here is Mike Garcia, the Republican, and Christy Smith, the Democrat, in a virtual dead heat with only 1% of the precincts reporting.
And then you have Steve Knight, who formerly held that seat with 17%, followed by Cenk Uygur with 3.9%. With the two we originally saw, Christy Smith and was it Mike Garcia? Was it Mike Garcia? I don't know if we can go back to it. Anyway, my point being, yes, it is. It is Mike Garcia. Thank you. Both being at 34%, this would send it into the runoff,
right,
which would be held on May 12th. If for one of them to win tonight, they would need 50% of the vote plus one vote.
All right. And then there's a primary election for the same seat with the same set of candidates. And what you're seeing here is Christy Smith in the primary, 29.3%, 26.7% for Mike Garcia. Those are the top two at the moment, with only 1% of the precincts reporting. So if whoever wins the primary would then have the right to run for the seat in November. So if there's a runoff in the special election, there might actually be there might be 3 elections for the same congressional seat. There would be another election in May to finish out the rest of the term. And then there'd be another election in November by the top 2 vote getters who win the primary. So this will be a very, very well contested seat and well vetted. Whoever goes through that process will certainly have earned the right to represent the people of the 25th District.
Yeah. Also interesting to note what's happening with House District 28. We're seeing Adam Schiff, the incumbent, with 60% of the vote. Adam Schiff, the ranking member of the House Intelligence Committee. He's in his 10th term, having served since 2001. And he won overwhelmingly in the midterm elections, taking 78.4% of the vote. Right now, he's got 60%. But again, these returns are quite early. But one would expect Adam Schiff to win this race.
It's a safe seat, and he is well liked in his district. Ted Lieu in the South Bay. Now, this is an interesting one, because he has talked about the placement on the ballot of his name. You know, the balloting system is such that you only see the top 2 names, and then you have to punch more, and then you see people further down the line. He is on the second page of that, and one of his complaints was, if you're going through the ballot quickly, you're not going to see his name, you're going to vote for somebody else. So we're going to see what effect, if any, that has had. His effort was to educate the voters. A lot of people have been trying to educate the voters on how to work these voting voting machines. But again, with 0% of the precincts reporting, this is mail-in ballots. He is up 55.9 to 24.3 handily. This is a blue district, and the expectation is that he would continue without, with that one thing kind of hanging over him to see what that
I'm pretty
what effect
sure.
that has.
I seem to recall when I voted too today that I saw Adam Schiff on page 2. Yeah.
Adam Schiff was on page 2. Oh gosh, my congressman, who I'm blanking out on right now, Brad Sherman was also on page 2. So a lot of incumbents who are complaining that there's some problems with this voting system the way it's set up.
Okay, let's get to House District 43 with Maxine Waters against Joe Collins here. Maxine Waters with 69.6% of the vote. Maxine Waters, longtime member of the House, serving since 1990. She has never garnered less than 71% of the vote in every general election she has won. She is a force to be reckoned with. And again, ahead with a huge lead right now, 69.6%. Again, it's early returns, but she has a history of winning big.
Well, there are no Republicans in her district. That's one reason. Dr. Boris Ricks, she has that seat for as long as she wants it. Essentially, right?
Essentially, until she decides to pass the baton. She certainly can hold that seat. As you mentioned, she has not had less than 70% since she has been in office. So she is very well liked, has a lot of support, ranking member, banking and finance. And so as she is commonly known as Auntie Maxine, is everyone's auntie.
Right. And also a very vocal critic of the president, very, very vocal on a number of issues, not just the president, but over the years she has made a name for herself. You see her on the talk shows, on the Sunday morning shows. So she's out there, and people certainly do know her, and those who she represents have been sending her back to Washington time and time again.
Definitely an advocate for marginalized people and groups that have been outside the mainstream. So a staunch advocate and supporter of marginalized groups and people of color, women, other marginalized groups, GLBTQIA community. Certainly a staunch supporter.
Any surprises in the local races that you've seen thus far tonight?
I am going to be keeping my eye on that 2nd district race. I'm very interested to see the outcome of that race. There are 3 African-American candidates who all have prior experience and all have held prior elective office. You have a president of the city council. You have a former city council person, and you have a very effective state senator. So it's going to be very interesting to see. I'm interested in that 2nd district race.
What would you say the #1 issue is for people voting? And is it homelessness for people voting in that race?
I think dealing with those who are unhoused is a #1 priority in the city of Los Angeles County, and the state of California. We need to do a better job of creating programs and creating opportunities to build housing stock where we don't have housing stock. We need to be able to convert some of our open space and empty lots into facilities that we can temporarily house folk, because that's really, really important.
In fact, the last time voters in LA County voted to raise their taxes was to address the problem of homelessness with Proposition H.
Absolutely, Proposition H. It's just unfathomable that on any given night in Los Angeles County, there are 60,000 people who are said to be unhoused. That is unfathomable. We really need to do something about that.
Okay, well, we shall see if that's the big issue. It might be a question of who has the better messaging on that issue going forward, to see who ends up winning in some of these local races.
Yeah, in fact, just going through some of my notes from the city council candidates, there are a number of people running, or not running, but, well, yes, newcomers into the race. But there are 8 races, I believe, for city council, 8 seats up for grabs tonight. And and out of the 15 city council seats, and one of the members has come up with this idea of these centers. There are 2 of them in his district, and I'm trying to find it in my notes right now. It's Paul Krikorian, and he calls them navigation centers, and they're places where people can come and they can use a shower, a restroom, and they can get resources. So they're like small spaces, but they're at least a place where someone can use a restroom, take a shower. It's a start, and it seems to be a popular thing, something that's working well. And so I think it'll be interesting to see if that will affect the vote in that race at all. He seems to have at least a pretty good idea, I think, for dealing with homelessness in his district, and a new idea. I think we need some new ideas right now, because what we've been trying for many years hasn't helped, it seems.
Yeah, that approach primarily is done for sanitary reasons, to make sure that the unhoused can properly utilize facilities or relieve themselves, and et cetera, as opposed to having that done on the public streets and create germs and the spread of bacteria and et cetera. So we certainly need to get more of those types of centers, those types of facilities, so that people can utilize facilities and relieve themselves and et cetera.
Yeah,
we certainly need to do that. Basic things. That's a basic need, And along those same lines, we need to be providing water and other fluids that will help maintain folk as well.
Yeah, so one wonders also, when you look at the issue of people who are homeless, is whether incumbents, some of them at least, might be punished for what people believe is inaction on this issue, and if it might, whether it's a good idea that might bring somebody up, people who maybe are perceived as not having done enough or not having done anything at all might be punished at the polls, depending on who their opposition is.
Yeah, the NIMBY syndrome. Not in my backyard. Yeah. This is really made dealing with the issue of the unhoused and proper and adequate housing stock, affordable housing, et cetera. It's made it really problematic. Problematic to the degree whereby when a group of people and or a district has supported this idea and notion of a center or a shelter, it's been approved by elected officials, and the business community and residential community step in and may not necessarily be on the same page as our elected officials. So that creates a bit of a logjam, because residents believe that I don't want them in my backyard. I don't want those people creating a safety hazard or a potential safety hazard. Yeah. So that's been very difficult to overcome.
Yeah.
That perception.
Right. Are there any city council races in particular that we should be focusing on tonight?
I'm not sure there are very many competitive city council races in Los Angeles. I think the most interesting most interesting race would probably be the 2nd supervisorial district.
Yeah.
That'll be the most interesting.
Yeah.
And that upcoming mayor's race is going to be interesting too in the city of Los Angeles.
Right, because the current supervisor who's running for city council and basically trying to swap seats with the council president, there's talk of course, Mark Ridley-Thomas hasn't made much of a secret of it, of running for mayor.
Well, seat swapping will put you in a very good position to launch a campaign.
Yeah. It does, well.
Highly visible.
Yeah, you do have that visibility and that megaphone, and it's better to run for office from office than from private life. We do know that. Kind of an advantage for the incumbency or the perception of incumbency.
Absolutely.
All right, well, we are watching the results still coming in. Jory Rand has been in Baldwin Hills, where he watched the Vice President Joe Biden on what has been a very good night for him, winning a number of states and competitive in others where up until just a couple of days ago, he was trailing or thought to have no chance at all. Yeah. Suddenly a breath of life breathed into his campaign. Jory?
Yeah, he's over 15% right now in California. That wasn't always a lock. In fact, you have to imagine if Amy Klobuchar and Pete Buttigieg didn't drop out and endorse Joe Biden 2 days ago, that might not be the case, and he would get 0 delegates here in California, despite the fact that he's just above that threshold right now here in this state. Elsewhere in the country, it has been a big shock. Minnesota, this was a 2-person race 2 days ago. and neither of them were Joe Biden. It was Amy Klobuchar and it was Bernie Sanders. So Amy drops out and Biden gets that support, and all of a sudden he takes Minnesota and Bernie finishes second. In Massachusetts, Elizabeth Warren still in the race. That's her home state. She's finishing third behind Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden taking the state of Massachusetts. Virginia, Joe Biden was trailing in the polls just 2 days ago. He takes more than 50% of the vote tonight. I mean, the turnaround has been stunning to see, and how fast this happened. He won South Carolina. He got the endorsement of Jim Clyburn in South Carolina, and it turned everything around. Got the majority of the vote there, got the majority of the black vote there, which for Democrats is a majority of the vote on their side, and turned around, and it's a brand new ball game. Of course, we're talking about how many states he won tonight. That number is essentially meaningless. It doesn't matter how many states you win because it's not a winner-take-all contest. Second place, if you hit 15% or more, third place, fourth place, as long as you have 15%, you will walk away with some delegates. And so the margin isn't as wide as you would expect to see when you see the state count here tonight. California is an interesting case only because there was so much early voting this year. There was an 11-day period where people could vote before today, and a lot of people took advantage of that. And if you did that prior to the last 2 days, you didn't know that Amy Klobuchar and Pete Buttigieg would be out. A lot of those votes elsewhere in the country for those two candidates went to Joe Biden. You're not seeing that translate here. You're not seeing that translate in states like, I think Utah is another early voting state where Joe Biden is kind of lagging behind Bernie Sanders, where in everywhere else he's exceeded expectations. And in fact, tonight, tweeting out to President Trump saying, President Trump is the loser tonight. Joe Biden, regardless of whether he takes California, and it has been projected that he will not, Joe Biden across the board could be considered the winner tonight. And he was jubilant in his speech here in Baldwin Hills. I think we're going to show a little bit of that a little later. But for now, we're reporting live in Baldwin Hills. Jory Rand, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
We will see that in a little bit. Jory, thanks for your live report from Baldwin Hills. And we go now to Orange County reporter Jessica DeNova. And she's live now in Anaheim at a Democratic watch party. And what's it like there, Jessica?
That's right. A lot of energy here in Anaheim with the Democratic Party of Orange County. I'm with the chairwoman, Ada Briseño. Thank you so much for joining me. You just addressed people here, a lot, people that were out trying to get the vote just today and throughout this entire process. What message did you have for them?
Well, we had that the Democratic Party is the party of the people and that we stand with their values. And Orange County has been transforming itself for some time now. In 2016, we voted for Hillary. 2018, we voted all Democrats, congressional folks. In 2019, we turned voter registration blue, and our transformation will continue in 2020. We're very excited about the upcoming November elections, and we're preparing. This was a dry run.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about that transformation, and we're seeing some of these results coming in or start to come in. One of the big races here is Gil Cisneros and Assemblywoman Young Kim. Now, according to these numbers, again, they're not all in, but so far of the Democrats and Republicans that have voted, Kim is ahead. Anything to say about that?
That was the same case in 2018. We're not worried. He's been very visible. He's had 7 town halls. He has stood up for the American values of making sure that the ACA is protected. So it's very important for us that his constituents will re-elect him. We feel very proud of that, and we're not worried. The rubber meets the road in November.
Okay. Do you think Orange County is sort of a representation of the rest of the nation and where things are going?
You know, I think that Orange County and suburban Orange County, we can do this in other parts of the nation. I think that we see that the Democrats or the youth is really flocking to the Democratic values. We see that the changing demographics in Orange County are also moving people to the Democratic Party. And the Trump rhetoric is not resonating here, and so it's bringing us a lot of energy.
Now, you bring up an important point that a lot of young people are flocking to the vote centers. We did did see that earlier at Cal State Fullerton. There was a line of about 200 students. We heard that was the case at UCI, at Sac Santa Ana College, where these students, were there at 8 o'clock, and those votes have still not been counted. I did see that earlier. This was probably 20 minutes ago. Of the Republicans that have voted in Orange County, just more than 93% have voted for Donald Trump. Is that of concern?
I think after, in November, we'll see a large turnout of Democrats. I think we'll prevail in Orange County for the Democratic candidate.
Thank you so much. Ava, anything else you want to add?
No, just that, we need to turn out every single vote possible in November, and we're gearing up and starting now.
All right. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate your time. All right. Thank you so much. Now, again, please keep an eye on abc7.com. We'll continue our live stream. We'll be covering here everything going on in Orange County. Reporting live in Anaheim, Jessica De Nova, ABC7 Eyewitness News.
Okay, Jessica, thank you so much. And we have some new returns now in on Measure FD, the LA County Emergency Response. This would be a 6-cent parcel tax per square foot on residential and commercial building. And right now it has 50% of voters saying yes. However, this measure would require at least 66% of the vote to pass. Supporters say that this is needed to meet the increasing demand for firefighters and paramedic services. In particular, supporters are citing the increasing fire danger that we have here in California.
All right, and Measure R, this one can win by a simple majority, and it appears to be headed that way, at least at this early stage, with 69% voting yes, 31 no. This is the one that would provide more power to the Civilian Oversight Commission over the Sheriff's Department to compel the production of documents and to be able to call witnesses to continue and intensify its oversight of the Office of Sheriff of Los Angeles County.
Joining us now is Dr. Boris Ricks from Cal State Northridge. And California is the crown jewel on Super Tuesday in terms of delegates, right? Mm-hmm. How many are up for grabs? And if you were quizzing one of your students on this tomorrow, what would you ask them about it? Because I think it's kind of complicated. It's hard to just explain to viewers how it works.
Well, when you look at when you look at Super Tuesday, you're talking about 1,357 delegates, right? Mm-hmm. To get the nomination is about 1,991 delegates, right? And guess what? California has 55 of those. So California, Texas, Florida, New York, Pennsylvania, Ohio, large population states have significant impact. And there's a saying, where California goes, the nation follows. Mm-hmm. So that's going to be interesting to see here. That's why the early voting in California is going to be interesting, because it's going to be it's a completely different type of voter, cohort of voter voting early than the later voters. Mm-hmm. It's going to be very, very, very different. So what you could conceivably see is someone ahead in early voting, and by the time the complete tally is done, a couple of days from now, that person may or may not win the race. Mm-hmm.
That happened with the sheriff's race a couple of years ago, where we went to bed with one result and found out later, a few days later. It took a while, but once the results were in LA County, we had a new sheriff.
That's how complex the electorate is in California.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we could see that too with the DA's race, because the numbers are different right now.
We can see that with the DA's race. We can see that in a number of areas.
We can see a dramatic shift tomorrow,
yes,
even though it's looking dramatically one way tonight. Yeah.
So the moral to the story is, hold the party till it's time to party.
All right. With that in mind, we're going to see who's partying. We're going to look at the 2nd District, LA County Supervisor right now. That race, pretty tight. Look at this. Mm-hmm. Again, these are raw numbers, so we don't know where these are coming from, what percentage are mail-in, what percentage are from today's vote. But look at Holly Mitchell at 29%. Herb Wesson, council president at this point, 27.5%. 1.5%. City Council President hoping to become County Supervisor, and again, Supervisor Ridley Thomas hoping to become a member of the City Council. And that's where we are right now. Those are the top two on that side, and then followed by Jan Perry at 15% and Jake Jong at 10.6%. For the 2nd District Supervisor. That's the one that you were saying, Professor, we've got to keep a real close eye on.
And very powerful position to be a member of the LA County Board of Supervisors. You have a big budget.
Big budget, 12-year term. You get, there's a lot of resources, 2 million people. There's also, a challenge of representing 2 million people.
And you get a discretionary budget in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. They can just dole out money by themselves from their own kind of office budget to affect things. They can help with a community center here. They can establish a reward for a criminal suspect there. So we're going to stop right now for the moment. We are online on our app as well. We're going to be on TV in just about 30 seconds. That should be fun. We hope you join us for that.
And then come back here for more on the internet.
Live from ABC 7, this is your voice, your vote, the California primary.
This is an Eyewitness News Super Tuesday update. I'm Michelle Tuzzi.
I'm Mark Brown. In just the past 30 minutes, the LA County Registrar apologizing to voters.
Yeah, this after some people waited in lines for hours. Eyewitness News reporter Veronica Miracle live now with more. Veronica?
Mark and Michelle, as you said, LA County Registrar Dean Logan, he just spoke at the podium to the media, striking a very remorseful tone. He said today did certainly not go as planned, and they hope to use this as a learning kind of blueprint for the next couple of years. Take a listen to what he had to say.
Obviously, today has been a challenging day for Los Angeles County. First and foremost, for Los Angeles County voters. So I want to address that first and to just express my appreciation and thanks to the voters who came out to vote today, and my apology for those that are still in line and waiting to vote. My commitment is that we will serve you.
Now, the polls have closed despite the fact that Senator Bernie Sanders' campaign, they filed a motion for an injunction to try and get those polling hours extended until 10 because of all of the issues that have happened today, from technology to long lines due to big voter turnout here. But they did not decide to keep those polls open. They said that everybody who is in line or who was in line by 8 o'clock will have a chance to vote tonight. For now, we are live in Downey. Veronica Miracle, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
Okay, Veronica, thank you.
Thank you, Veronica. And we're going to send you back now to ABC News Super Tuesday coverage. And we will bring you another local Eyewitness News update in a half an hour. And a reminder that we are streaming live local results on abc7.com/live and on our ABC 7 Los Angeles app. Thanks for joining.
All right, good evening. We are back on our ABC 7 Los Angeles app, abc7.com as well, with your election coverage tonight. Where are we going? What's next?
Yeah. Okay, let's take a look at the
DA's race.
Yes, the race for district attorney, a closely watched race here in Los Angeles County. Jackie Lacey right now with 53.9% of the vote. She is the incumbent, two-term incumbent, who oversees the office that she has worked in since the late 1980s. Her challenger, George Gascone, the former district attorney of San Francisco and former assistant police chief for the LAPD. He spoke out about an hour ago, maybe a little longer, at Union Station. Jackie Lacey has no events scheduled for this evening. He has 24.9% of the vote.
All right, kind of telling that, well, there's Rachel Rossi then at 21%. She is she's a public defender, former public defender. Now, kind of telling that Jackie Lacey had no public events scheduled for this evening. I don't think you do that if you're expecting to win, right? So I think that we can maybe read into that she's got her own internal polling. All these candidates do their own internal polling and look to see, kind of forecast what their expectation is. And one wonders if that is what she expects, if she doesn't expect to win tonight.
Well, her team may, in fact, have thought it would be in the best interest of the team to basically celebrate in closed-door fashion, either behind your homes or in another location, as opposed to opening it up in a public celebration. Because following the incident transpired in her home, it probably was not a good move to be in a celebratory public fashion, and et cetera. So this way, they can close ranks and if it's a celebratory, celebrate, and if it's not, it's still behind closed doors.
Okay. The LA County Supervisors race, let's take a look here. The 4th District, the incumbents in the LA County Board of Supervisors. This is kind of why they have term limits now, because these were life terms. Her father, Kenneth Hahn, after whom the County Hall of Administration is named, served from the early 1960s until basically right before his death in the mid-90s. And, that's a family tradition, in effect, of holding elective office.
And then her brother becoming mayor of Los Angeles. Here we have Los Angeles County Supervisor, 5th District. Again, the incumbent with a very sizable lead. Catherine Barger with 61% of the vote, and her challenger with 20.7%.
And there's,
And Darrell Park with 17.9%. And what are we going to next?
We're going to LA City Council. We got the even-numbered districts that are up right now from the San Fernando Valley. Paul Krikorian at this point at 70% to 16%, even with very few votes counted. That looks like a pretty insurmountable lead for Rudy Melendez, but we've seen stranger things. Mr. Krikorian has had some critics that are pretty vocal, but he does seem to have an awful lot of support as well.
Let's continue on now with the LA City Council District 4 race. This is David Rue, the incumbent, winning with at this moment with 50.7%. Neetha Raman with 33.6%. David Rue elected first in 2015. Sarah Kate Levy with 15.7%.
And let's go to District 6, shall we? This is Nuri Martinez. Her second term, I believe, on the board of LA City Council, and again, handily in the lead right now. The vote total's not very high. Not a lot of votes have been counted. Fewer votes cast for city council districts than for other offices, but pretty low numbers there so far. So we'll see how this one shakes out. But again, a commanding lead there with Bill Haller coming in third.
And District 10, this is Mark Ridley Thomas, who is the supervisor, who is termed out, and he is now running for the LA City Council seat that is being vacated by Herb Wesson, who is termed out. And Mark Ridley Thomas right now has 44.3% of the vote, and Grace Yu has 30.3%.
With Aura Vasquez and Melvin Snell coming in, rounding out the top 4 in that district. Now here's District 12.
In District 12, we have John Lee, the incumbent, with 54.9%. Lorraine Lundquist, 45.1%. John Lee is the former chief of staff to Mitch Englinger. And LA Council seat District 14, Kevin De Leon with 53.4%. Cindy Otteson with 19.7%.
And De Leon might be one of those also running for mayor of the city of Los Angeles against Ridley Thomas. So that could be a very interesting set of meetings they're going to be having over these next few months, depending on how things go. And there's Raquel Zamora and Monica Garcia rounding out the top 4 on LA City Council District 14.
Dr. Ricks, any surprises in what we're seeing tonight? This is really, you said there wasn't really anything big in play here with the city council, right?
No, I don't think there are any surprises on the city council race at this particular time. I do think, I think Mark touched upon something. I think it's going to be interesting as these elected officials who have been, who some will call career politicians, as they take their new seats and are sworn in, how the jockeying will start to play out for the executive of the city of Los Angeles, the mayor's race. That's going to be very interesting. It's going to be fascinating because Los Angeles will probably either elect the second African-American mayor in the history of the city or the second Latino mayor in the history of the city. So it'll be an interesting race for these two communities and how they would form coalitions around each of these two individuals who are said to be prime candidates to run for mayor. Now, they have not declared, but they're said to be some of the front runners if they do.
Not to declare is to declare sometimes in these. And when you talk about the second African American mayor or the second in modern history Latino mayor of LA, these are coalitions. You can't become mayor without either one. You've got to capture both of them.
Exactly.
So whoever's good at capturing both halves of that coalition is who would end up winning the office. So
absolutely, and there's still a significant portion of white voters out there as well. So you're going to have to do well amongst all groups.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Tom Bradley was able to do it for a while.
Tom Bradley was able to do it.
Yeah.
He brought together a unique coalition. African American, Jews, Asian Americans, and Latinos. A four-pronged coalition that was inclusive and welcoming and had respect for women entering the coalition equation as well. So maybe the most inclusive and enduring coalition in local politics.
Yeah.
All right. We'll see what happens. Thank you. Let's check in on the LA County District Attorney's race, see how that's looking right now. Jackie Lacey right now has 53.9% of the vote, and George Cascone with 24.9%.
All right, very hotly contested, the LA County DA's race. We will not, here at ABC 7, be projecting a winner in that race tonight because the Registrar's office just reporting raw vote totals, but not reporting the precinct totals. And that means we don't know where these votes are coming from and what votes are still outstanding. We're hearing from the registrar that they'll have that information tomorrow, so we'll have a better snapshot, really, of what this race is actually doing.
All right, we have a team of reporters fanned out across the Southland tonight to help us with our election coverage, including our Josh Haskell. And Josh, tell us where you are right now and what you are seeing.
I am at the Echoplex. It is the Bernie Sanders official watch party in Los Angeles. Bernie Sanders, of course, he is in Vermont, which is also a Super Tuesday state, that he won. And as we've been reporting all night, it has been a good Super Tuesday for Joe Biden. But I want to stress that the mood here is a very upbeat mood because Bernie Sanders staff and supporters in California, they are feeling really good. And I want to read you guys a quote from a Sanders spokesperson. It said, "If you turn off your television, you will wake up tomorrow morning to a different race." And that is the feeling with us waiting on Texas and California. Both have not been projected. On that note, I want to bring in Ramesh Srinivasan. You're a UCLA professor. You're also a national surrogate with the Bernie Sanders campaign. Tell me what campaign staffers are telling you tonight and what the mood really is. How are you feeling about Sanders' chances in California?
Yeah, I mean, we're feeling really good. I mean, California's already been called for our campaign. But we're going to.
We have not, KBC, ABC 7. We have not, but I know others have. So that's totally accurate that you feel that way. Sorry, keep going.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, we're going to figure out the delegate part, the delegate totals that come out of this. But our campaign has always been about the grassroots energy. We started in communities, specifically in Latinx, and other sort of like specific like communities all over the state. We've been on the ground in the state for several months. I mean, you must have talked to a lot of us over the months. And we've been applying that model all over the country. I mean, this is a campaign that starts with people, that starts with communities, that starts with workers, that starts with immigrants, and builds up from that. And really, our policies reflect the vision that is at the heart and the soul of the Democratic Party. So we feel great. We've done really well with the Latino community. We have a lot of popularity with younger people, and we are defining the agenda by which the Democratic Party is being defined moving forward.
And as we know, campaigns are difficult and they're long. Sanders volunteers knocked on 1.5 million doors. You guys have 23 offices across the state. He even came here 11 times, which was, I'm pretty sure, more than almost any other candidate, I believe, besides Tom Steyer, who, of course, dropped out, but he's obviously from California. Yeah. He lives here. Anything you just want to say about the feeling you have about how hard you guys worked, what it's like to be here with your friends tonight and fellow staffers, and kind of just feeling sort of patting yourself on the back, or tell us about that?
I mean, our staffers are not political operatives. I'm not a political operative. We're people. Like, we're from communities. I'm a teacher, And this is really like what our campaign is about. It's the people being represented by our campaign, and that's why we have record numbers of volunteers. We've set American political history records on so many different fronts. Numbers of donors, numbers of volunteers, numbers, small grassroots communities and donors coming together. So we feel very, very good about our situation moving forward because we understand how to build coalitions on the ground. And you can see with the policy proposals that this campaign has, its popularity with young people, that it is the campaign of the present and the future. So we're really excited about where we're at coming forward. Obviously, this is, not going to be an easy race. No campaign ever is. It's going to take some time. But, with this victory in California, with other victories that we've achieved already in this campaign, with our large number of delegates that we're going to have, we are moving forward in a progressive direction around an agenda that works for all Americans, especially working people. And that's so at the core of who we are, our heart, the heart of our campaign.
Thank you so much for talking to us, Ramesh. I appreciate it. Thank you. So that is really the mood here at this Sanders event. Many people feel like they've already won. Californians are watching those returns. We have not projected California for Sanders yet, but you can just know how many months these folks have been working on this campaign. To hear news like that, or at least see the results that he is doing well, is definitely a reassuring feeling. And one more thing while I'm with you, Mark and Michelle, that I just want to highlight, that we have been talking about the issues that LA County voters have faced tonight. And one of the issues that we have been reporting on the last couple weeks is the fact that there were less polling places this election season. There are now voting centers. I just want to highlight some of those numbers for you. Long Beach, this election had gone from 247 locations to 33. Santa Clarita gone from 92 to 18. And so that may be one of the issues that voters are facing, because, Mark, as you talked about earlier, many people had waited till today to vote, even though you can vote in LA County starting February 22nd, and many additional 700 additional locations last Saturday. But many people waited till today, and they may have gone to places that the Registrar just didn't know where people would show up at because their old polling locations had closed. So you have large numbers going to the same place, a very hard thing to predict, and it does seem like that may have caused some hiccups tonight. Those long lines, we're hearing up to 4 hours at some places. I'll send it back to you.
All right, it's a story we're going to continue to cover here, Josh. Thank you. Another story we are keeping track of, and this is breaking news. Kaiser Permanente confirming to us that there is now a second confirmed case of coronavirus in Los Angeles County. Kaiser Permanente reporting the patient is in self-isolation and is being treated on an outpatient basis. No other details about who this person is or where they are. That has not been released. Now, the impact of the coronavirus being felt all across Southern California. Tomorrow night at 6 o'clock on Eyewitness News, we're dedicating our entire newscast to covering the effect of coronavirus, and we're going to answer your questions, too. Again, that's tomorrow night at 6 o'clock on ABC 7.
All right, we're going to continue with our election coverage now, and we will have much more on the coronavirus development on Eyewitness News at 11 on ABC 7. But we're going to pick up our coverage now with the election coverage, and it was really interesting to hear from Josh Haskell the striking numbers, the voting centers going down to 33 in Long Beach today, whereas in the prior election there had been 247 locations. And then in Santa Clarita, where earlier I think was Eyewitness News at 4, Air 7 HD was over a super long line in Santa Clarita. And, you know, they used to have 92 places to vote in Santa Clarita, and today they had just 18. So is this something, Boris, do you think that they can change? Can they add more voting centers, or is this kind of just the way it's going to be now, do you think?
I think Dean Logan will probably look at this this scenario and from the outcomes tonight so that we're prepared in November. Certainly going to have to either increase the time or ensure that the functionality of the machines is at optimum performance.
Yeah.
So that's going to, require some work. And anytime you're dealing with technology, you're going to have an adequate team to get in there and get things fixed, pretty expeditiously, right? I mean, I understand there were some centers where 90% of machines weren't working, and there was significant people outside of those centers. So that made it extremely difficult. So with that being said, the experiment to bring more voters into Los Angeles County and to take us to the next phase, to take us to a newer or more modern era, it entails hiccups.
Yeah, now this is what we're looking at here. This is a polling place in Studio City. Long line of folks out here. The polls closed at 8. People are in line. They've been in line since 8 o'clock. They're going to be voting there possibly until 11 o'clock tonight. Do we have the specific location in Studio City where this is? Bridges Academy. All right, this is where I went earlier today at about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I budgeted an hour of time to go and vote, thinking that it was going to take longer than usual. Usually it's 20 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Went to Bridges Academy. The line was 2 hours long. I left there and went to another location. Bridges Academy it's a school, and I don't know what it is. Maybe, I mean, obviously they have the capacity, the bigger rooms, but it seems like these schools that we've been looking at have all kind of had this same problem where there's just throngs of people showing up, and this is a line that has been long all day long, and people there now looking at 11 o'clock before this line finally dwindles down to the last person. Also an indication too of the dedication of people who are absolutely determined to exercise their right to vote. They know it matters. They know it's important. They're hearing results. They're hearing some other outlets are calling this state for one candidate or the other. We are not doing that at ABC 7 because the results aren't in to our satisfaction yet, but they're still voting because not only is it about the presidential race, it's about other down ballot races and propositions, and folks are determined to have their voices heard. The Registrar of Voters saying, in effect, sorry it's taken so long. We're going to try to do what we can to fix this.
And I feel sorry as well for all the people who are working at those voting centers. That many of them are volunteers. And I was talking to one in particular today who's worked 4 days, very long days, and it used to just be a one-day event for the volunteers.
Right.
Okay, so here's a look at the Democratic presidential race in California. The new numbers coming in now showing Bernie Sanders with 29.4% of the vote, Joe Biden with 18.8%. Are we going to show a second screen? Here we go. Michael Bloomberg with 17.9% and Elizabeth Warren with 12%.
All right. And so as we've seen the numbers come in California, Joe Biden has gone from third place. He's basically traded places with Michael Bloomberg. Bernie Sanders has been ahead the entire evening. The Sanders folks very optimistic about his chances in California. And as we have said, other media outlets have called the state for California. ABC and ABC 7 have not, but they're very optimistic and very happy about how things are going so far in the state of California. And given the way things have gone in much of the rest of the country, it is a very good thing for Bernie Sanders that he's doing well here, because otherwise the story could be a very, very bad one for him tonight.
Absolutely. And let's look at it from another angle. Let's just, if I understand correctly, the Biden campaign didn't invest very much revenue and or resources in their team in California.
No.
And for that to be the case and to come away right now with about 20% of the vote, that's, some could say that's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, they had, from what I've been reading and researching, they had no field offices in the entire state of California. They had nothing here, no presence really.
Exactly.
And
exactly.
That being the case, yeah, to come in to do this well, you know, he's been having some fundraising troubles as well.
Well, well, the goal for their team was to get 15%, so they can get some delegates in California. They didn't think they were going to win California, and to do what he has done in California suggests to me there's some spillover from some of those other victories.
And what about Sanders' success in California so far? We're told that 1.5 million doors were knocked down by people with the Sanders campaign, supporters or campaign workers. How important is it for people to have that human connection?
Well, the Sanders campaign aggressively spent time in California going door to door. Been going door to door for about 2.5 years, almost 3 years, since 2016. Build an apparatus, and this apparatus is in place, and this apparatus is inclusive. There are people all across California, young people, seniors, people who are union advocates, union supporters, people who aren't union supporters. It's a very wide, broad, eclectic group of folk who are supporting Bernie. So he has support across the board, and it's been building for 2.5 years. So with that being said, I expect Bernie to win California.
But you're saying, you were talking in the break about the difference between California and Texas, where the result you're saying, because I don't think anybody has called Texas. I don't think ABC has for either candidate too. That one, I believe, still close to call, too close to call.
It's still too close.
What's your expectation there?
If I were a betting person, I would bet that Biden, that Joe would do a little bit better in Texas than he would in California, because there were no resources that were spent to do well in California. So there were a few resources put into Texas, and then you got some big endorsements last night at the major rally, right? And so that probably is going to turn the tide in Texas. And if that turns the tide in Texas, that could probably be a bellwether for Texas, because Texas could possibly send a couple of members from Texas to the U.S. House of Representatives.
Yeah, Beto O'Rourke made a fiery speech on his behalf.
Awesome speech.
In El Paso, and that was a pretty big night on the night that he got that endorsement. So
right.
Well, that's going to be interesting.
Dr. Ricks, thank you. We're going to talk back. We'll be talking with you in just a minute, but first we're going to get to the U.S. House District 25, and this is a special election to fill Katie Hill's seat. Hill stepped down last year amid controversy. The first returns that we're going to show you is for the special election to fill out the remainder of what would have been Katie Hill's term. And here we have candidates Christy Smith and Mike Garcia. Pretty close. Christy Smith with 31.9%, Mike Garcia with 28.8%. And then we have Steve Knight, who formerly held that seat in St. Uger, with 4.5%. What's happening in this race is that you would have to have 50% plus one to win it outright tonight. That does not appear to be the case. So this will go to a runoff, most likely, and the top two will go to a runoff on May the 12th. Now, running concurrently with this is the U.S. House District 25 race to fill out the whole next term. So
to run for election in November.
Yes. And so here we have, again, Christy Smith. In this case, she's got 29% and is very close with Mike Garcia with 26.3%.
Wow. Okay. And with Steve Knight again, he was trying to recapture his old seat, but it doesn't look like, at least at this point, that's going to happen. Cenk Uygur, a television commentator and blogger who is now trailing pretty handily. So trying to get a political career going. Doesn't seem like that's going to be happening for him, at least at this point in this district. But, there's always next time in different places. We're going to be pausing right now. We're going to do a cut in on ABC 7. We hope you join us on TV, and then we'll see you back here on the web, on our app, and on abc7.com. See you in a bit.
Live from ABC 7, this is Your Voice, Your Vote, the California primary.
This is, oh, sorry.
Mark, go ahead.
Yes, it is. This
Yes.
is. We're enthusiastic about it. An Eyewitness News Super Tuesday update. I'm Mark Brown.
I'm Michelle. Tuesday, Election Day in Southern California is not over yet.
Yeah, a lot of folks still waiting in line at voting centers to cast their ballots despite the polls that closed at 8 o'clock. Eyewitness News reporter Veronica Miracle live in Downey. The registrar apologizing to voters a short time ago. That's an unusual step, Veronica.
Certainly is, Mark and Michelle, and here at the Tally Center, which is pretty much the heart of the machine that is the LA County voting system. What you're looking at behind me, those are machines that are going to be counting all of the ballots and making sure that everything is accurate. And we're actually just seeing some ballots coming in right now, but they have not been brought to the machines at this point yet. There's been a lot of delays here, and it started at the voting centers today. Long lines due to mostly technical issues and also high voter turnout, according to the LA County Registrar. In fact, Senator Bernie Sanders filed a motion to issue an injunction tonight to keep voting centers open longer so that if people wanted to get in line past 8 p.m., they could. Despite that, the registrar decided to close the polls at 8 p.m. So anybody who is in line at 8 p.m. will be able to vote. But if they tried to get in line past that, they would not. Logan struck a very remorseful tone when he addressed the media just a few minutes ago.
The majority of the issues that we dealt with today on the technical end related to the check-in process, which was the process of our electronic poll books, which is what enables people to go and vote at any location and to make sure that we have a full accounting of that. That proved to be a slower and more cumbersome process. The connectivity that's required for that and the stability of that needs to be addressed.
A lot of issues here. We're going to keep track of that. We'll send it back to you guys.
Veronica, thank you. Millions of voters turned out today, and for many, that meant very long lines.
Our Eileen Frere joins us live in West Hollywood. A lot of folks there staying past the 8 p.m. cutoff to cast their ballots. Eileen?
Oh, that's for sure, Mark and Michelle. The line here, at least, though, extends only the length of this building now and not all the way down the street. We have video to show you of what it looked like about 2.5 hours ago. We're at 838 West Knoll Drive in West Hollywood. Some people telling us that it took 3.5 hours to cast their ballot. One polling station worker saying that the machines were working here, but it was just a huge turnout. Again, anybody who was in line before 8 o'clock tonight is being allowed to cast their ballot. Reporting live from West Hollywood, Eileen Frere, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
Okay, Eileen, thank you. Let's take a look at the race for LA County District Attorney. ABC 7 not projecting a winner tonight because the Registrar's office reporting just raw vote totals, but not reporting the precinct totals. They'll have that information tomorrow, but here's the vote thus far with, you see Jackie Lacey in the lead and George Gascone second, Rachel Rossi in third with 21%.
And we have some breaking news on an unrelated note. Kaiser Permanente confirming to us that there is now a second confirmed case of coronavirus in LA County. Kaiser Permanente reports the patient is in self-isolation and is being treated on an outpatient basis. Right now, no other details have been released about that patient.
We're going to send you back to ABC News Super Tuesday coverage, and we'll bring you complete coverage of today's elections on Eyewitness News tonight at 11 o'clock. You can also get updates with the ABC 7 Los Angeles app and on abc7.com.
Thanks for watching.
And we're clear on TV. Stand by for web.
Okay. Thought we were going to be
Okay.
And yes, we're on here on ABC7 on our app, abc7.com, and on the ABC7 Los Angeles app with continuing coverage of the Super Tuesday election, both here in Southern California and, of course, across the country.
Let's take a look at some of the latest numbers that we have in right now in the Democratic presidential primary. These new numbers coming in showing Bernie Sanders now with 29.6% of the vote in California. Joe Biden with, is it 19%? Yes, 19% of the vote.
All right, Biden showing pretty strongly here, having had little presence. Mike Bloomberg, former New York mayor, of course, the billionaire, who has spent tons and tons of money once the primary season began. His were the first ads we saw on TV on ABC7, and they were ubiquitous. We saw his ads, and then as it got closer to the primary, we started seeing ads for Bernie Sanders, who of course has had a very strong presence here in California, and now Elizabeth Warren coming in fourth place right now at 12%. Not calling California just yet.
Yeah. Let's give a hand to Dr. Boris Ricks, who has had a very long day and was so kind to join us here on our set for our election coverage this evening. We really appreciate you bringing your insight to our news desk tonight, and we thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you so much.
We hope to see you again.
And we want to thank you for joining us for our special Super Tuesday election coverage.
You can continue to find results on abc7.com/vote. And of course, we will have the latest coming up on Eyewitness News at 11. A lot of coverage still ahead here on our website, on our streaming on abc7.com, and on ABC7 at 11 p.m. Thanks so much for watching.